Hey, welcome back. All right, so we're still working on doors. We've made a single door and a double door. Both of them are automatic. We're also going to make another door that's automatic, and this is going to be a sliding door. So instead of rotating 110 degrees to open, we're going to make it slide about 90 units to the left or the right to be able to get it to open all the way. Of course, that also depends on whether it's going to be a double door or a single door, and I'll show you the difference on how to set up the timeline to make sure that whichever door you use will work correctly for that type of operation, whether it's going to be a single door or a double door. So let me get my head out of the way and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so here is our scene again, and if I hit play, you'll see that I've got a sliding door to the right and a sliding door to the left. One's a single, one's a double. This is the single. And it'll just open up just the same way. And you can see that it rotates, or rather slides to the left. And then this one slides left and right. We're just going to end up building onto the double doors that we've already created in order to get these to work. So let's go ahead and first take a real quick look at what I'm talking about with the difference between the left and the right doors, with the single door rather and the double door. So the single door, the slider, when we set up the timeline, because of the way that we have the door set up, so if I go to the viewport and select the door, we set these doors up to have the center point or the little gizmo set down here in the left-hand corner as if it were a rotating door. And when we go to slide it to the left or to the right, depending on how you have this door set up, because this is all the way to the left, the timeline, you're going to need to take that into consideration. So instead of starting at 0 for here, it's going to be times 0, and the value will be 45 instead of 0. And then, of course, this will be at our 3-second point, and it'll be set up at 135 because we want it to move 90 degrees, or 90 units one direction or the other, but it needs to slide that amount starting at the 45 because of the way the model is set up. All right, and then of course the double slider, we have it set up this way so that like with the double doors, we have the corner point here, but the timeline for these is a little bit more of what you would expect it to be, starting at 0 and going out to negative 90, and then here at 0, 0, 0, and going out to a positive 90. Just very similar to the way we set up the double doors. And I'm going to go ahead and do the double door slider since it's a little bit more complicated than the single slider so that we can kind of see how that works. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our project. So here's the scene. And what we're going to end up needing to do is I'm going to go into our content, into our starter content, and into props. And then this is where we have all of our doors set up. And we're going to have to modify these doors. There's no door without the door handles. And that's going to be the biggest part about this tutorial, because really the mechanics of how the door work are pretty much the same as a rotating door, except we're using a transform instead of a change of location instead of doing a rotator. So the biggest part, like I said, is going to be setting up the door, and we're going to use GIMP as our software to do that. You can also do this in Photoshop. It works the exact same way. So once I show you how to do it in GIMP, if you're a Photoshop user, you'll know how to do it in Photoshop just the same as we do it in GIMP. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to take both this left and right door, and I'm going to want to duplicate them. So I'm going to do a Control D, and for the left door, I'm going to call this slider at the end, so left slider, and then for the right door, Control D, and we're going to go ahead and call this one slider also at the end. So we have a left door slider and a right door slider. Do file, save all in case Unreal Engine decides to crash. So I'm going to grab both of these and drag both the ones we just created out into the scene, because we're going to have to modify them. Now, they're both in the opposite direction of where I want them to be. So I'm going to select one of them and drag it over this way, just so we can kind of visualize what's happening here. Something like that. We're going to end up, of course, doing this inside of the actual blueprint to set it all up so it doesn't have to be perfect. But what we do need to do is we need to get rid of these door handles. And we're going to do that by jumping into our modeling tool. And we're going to go to modeling. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to mesh. And we're going to do a tri-select. So this is basically we're selecting triangles using a brush. So if I select it, and then you'll see I get this little green brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll in and I'm going to select the door handle and see how it all turns red using this tool. And then if I hold the shift button, or is it the control button rather, sorry, the control button, I can select both of those and I can hit delete. But we see that we still have a problem, right? We still have the piece of the door here. And then if I were to move the door back, the lock on the inside is there as well. And I'll show you that in a second. But those are not models. Those are actually done using the textures inside the material. So we'll have to get rid of those. And I'll show you how to do that with GIMP here in a second. So let's go ahead and accept this one. And then I'm going to select the next door, do the same thing. I'm going to select that door handle. And then I'm going to go to the other side, hold the control button, select that one, hit delete, and we're going to accept it. And now if I slide this back, you'll see the door lock is also on there as well. We want to get rid of both of those. And that's going to involve us having to modify the textures. So what we're going to do, and we don't have to do this twice, we only have to do this once and then apply the material to each of the doors that we've modified. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and right here where it says element 0 with the door selected, we hit the little folder. It's going to take us to the one that says M door. And I'm going to duplicate this because, again, we don't want to modify the original because we want the other doors that have doorknobs to stay looking correct. And we're just going to backslide this, and we're going to call this door slider. So M_door slider for the material. And if I double click on it and open it, do a save all so we don't lose it. When I zoom in, this is a material that's basically using this multicolored texture and then applying different colors over the top of them to give us the effect that we have with our material. So we have the kind of a bronze color, sort of a kind of a beige tan color, and this orange color, which turns out to be yellowish kind of in here when it's all mixed together. And it's doing it through these output channels of RGB. So it knows to apply certain colors based off of the RGB reading from this texture as its output. And you can see that the R would go into this multiply here in the way that it sets it all up. So we're going to leave all that alone, but what we do want to do is we want to change that texture and also this texture, which is our normal map, and our ambient occlusion as well. We want our lighting to be correct as well. So this is the same texture that's being used for both here and for our ambient occlusion. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit the little, once we click it, we're going to hit the little magnifying glass down here on the folder. It's going to take us right to our texture, which is right here. Now we don't need to duplicate this because what we're going to do is we're going to export it. So if we right click, we're going to go to asset actions and we're going to export. And we're going to actually, I'm going to put it into the project that we're using here. So I'm going to go up one level and go to the Rollerball tutorial. That's what I've called mine. I'm just going to drop it right in here in this top folder because it doesn't need to go into the content folder. We're going to pull it out and modify it, and then we'll put it back in here in a minute with a different name. So we're going to save that one. We're also going to do the same thing for this normal map here. We're going to find it. We're going to right click. We're going to export this. And we're going to export it into this as well. See, it has a little N at the end. We're going to save that. All right, so these should both be in our folder now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open. All right, so real quick, GIMP, if you just do a Google search for it, it'll come up with GIMP. It's gimp.org. I'll put this in the link down below, and it'll take you to this home page right here. GIMP is a GNU image manipulation program, so it's a lot like Photoshop in the fact that you can modify images, create images, and those type of things. Using this, it's free, and you can download it from here. And when you click on it, it gives you some different choices for download. You can also download it from the Microsoft Store, which is what I did, and it supports Windows OS 10 and newer. So anyway, that's where you can get it. When you open it, it'll look something like this, okay? And you can see I modified the other ones already, but we're going to go ahead and create a new one. Now, one of the things we want to make sure is that when we open this up, that when we, of course, in order to create our new project, we want to make sure that we set our canvas size to the correct size. So when we go looking for the textures that we exported, we want to make sure that we're using whatever size dimensions that that texture is. And in this case, it's 2048 by 2048 for both of these. So we'll be able to use the same one for both of these. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to create a new image. And right here is where we can select the size. Okay, and then let's make sure that it's set to pixels, and we're going to go ahead and say OK. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of these images, and we're going to drop it onto here. I'm going to start with this texture. Okay, and typically we have this set up. So when I do that, you can see that we end up with these, well, these are the textures from our door. And we want to get rid of the door handle, which is this kind of yellow-green color here. We can also cover up this one. It's not really going to be used, but we can go ahead and cover it up just to be on the safe side. Now, the way we're going to want to do this is we're going to make sure that we're using the same color background that we have here for the red, because that's the color that we want to get rid of. We want to make this door the entire same color as our material for the rest of the door. So over here, we have our little color chip. We can click on it. We can do a little selection right here for the eyedropper, and then we can go over and we can find that red and just kind of select it and then say OK. And it should set this up so that you have your top one as red. Now, a little bit different than Photoshop is with Photoshop, you can get a rectangle that will automatically fill with whatever your fill color is. Here in GIMP, we're going to need to get a rectangle. So I'm going to select the rectangle tool here. And I'm just going to do a rectangle tool over the top of this. Something like that. Okay. And you can see that it completely highlights it. And now I'm going to go to the fill bucket. And I'm going to click on it, and it should automatically fill all red. And then I'm going to go back, select the rectangle again. I'm going to do that for this section here too. Select the tool, fill it. All right, and then you can choose to save this or not. That's up to you. But I am going to go ahead, and I'm going to File. I'm going to Export. And I'm going to export it into my folder. Okay, and so here's the folder. Here's where I have the door material PNG. I'm going to select that name, and I'm going to change it up here to be door. And I'm just going to get rid of the M and call this slider. And hit enter. And now that should be in my folder. Oh, actually, there's one more thing I got to do before it pops in. Right here, this little window pops up way over on my other screen, so I didn't see it. So once it's in here, we have these things that we can change if we want to, but in this case, we're not. We're just doing a simple export, so we're just going to hit export. And it should pop into your folder. There it is right there. If I select it, now you see that that's exactly what we created. All right, so now with this still open here, I'm just going to go ahead and grab this N one for the normal. And I'm going to drop it on here. And we can see that the red is kind of highlighted in the background. We can actually hide over here, just like in Photoshop. We can hide that one right there. So we can get rid of that. We're going to hide that one we just created in the background so we don't have anything sticking through. And what we want to do is we're going to change this to the right color, because right here is where our problem is. See how we have the little circle here and the little lock there? This is what is showing up on our door still. So even if we change the material, we'd still have these shapes showing up on our door, and it wouldn't look quite right. And I'm also going to hide this as well because we don't need it, but it probably won't affect anything. So again, I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to select the the little color swatch. I'm going to select the little computer screen there with the eyedropper, and I'm going to select this blue color, and I'm going to say OK. Now it should match our color here. So I'm going to go ahead and the same deal, select the X, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do this real carefully right in here. I only want it to be as big as that door lock. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the fill and click in there and fill it. Do the same thing for this one. Select the fill bucket, fill it. And then over here, fill it. All right, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to export this one. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to Export. So it's going to take me back into here. I'm going to select the normal one, and I am going to leave the N at the very end for this one, and I'm going to type in slider and then hit an underscore so it looks like this with an N at the end, so I know that this is the normal. And I am going to go ahead and export that in there. And again, that little pop-up there it is, little pop-up. And I'm going to hit export. Now we've got our textures fixed, okay? And if I go into that folder, they should both be showing up in here. So I have the slider one and the slider normal. All right. Now you can choose to save this if you want, do a file, save as, save it somewhere on your computer, or you can just close it out. I'm going to just discard it. I don't need it. So we need to take these two textures that we just created, and we're going to go into our content drawer. And with that folder selected, we're going to click and drag and drop these into that texture folder where the door was at. And now they should be right in here after the door, after the original two door ones, we should have our normals. So now if I select back on this texture sample right here, hit the down arrow, my door slider one should pop up in here, and I can select that. And I'm going to do the same thing with the normal. Door slider normal. And then same thing with this texture right there. I'm going to go back in, find my T-door slider, and I'm going to do a file, save all. And now this material that we have here, M-door slider material, should not have the locks on them. Awesome. Okay, so now let's go back in to our sandbox, and what I want to do is I'm actually going to change it so that we don't have to change them every time we pull these doors out. We're going to have them so that they always are changed. The way to do that is with this door selected. If I double click on that door right there, here is where we see that door handle. Now if I hit the down arrow here for the door, I should find the one right underneath that says M door slider, because all we did is add the slider to the end of it. If I select that and hit save. Okay, so I fixed it behind the scenes, and you don't get to see it because I already fixed it. But if you notice when I hit save, the door handle is still on there. Unreal Engine sometimes does this really weird, funky thing where even though you do a file, save all, and the little asterisk goes away, on materials, sometimes Unreal Engine doesn't automatically save it. Even though it looks like it's saved, it didn't really save. So all I did is I went back to my M-door slider material, hit save individually. It's like, you know, giving someone a personal invite. I guess the material needed a personal invite, and updated it. And when I did that, then it fixed the door, and the material is correct for this door. So then hit save for this door. And then let's go in and get the one for the other door. And we're going to go ahead and open this one up for the right slider. And I'm just going to change this one. And it should just automatically update. I'm going to hit save. Do a save all. And go back into our scene. And they both should be fixed now. Okay. We're right at 20 minutes. I'm going to push on because I think we can do the rest of this pretty quickly. Anyway, if we go back into the content drawer, I'm going to go to my content. We're just going to reuse the blueprint that we've already done for our double doors over there. I'm going to go ahead and go to blueprints. I'm going to go into interactables. For door double regular, I'm going to do a Control D after I select it. And instead of regular, I'm going to call this slider. Okay, I'm going to double click this. And now if I go into the viewport, I'm going to select one of these doors, and that's going to be the door left. So I'm going to replace that model with my door left slider. Okay, and then for the right door, I'm going to select it. I'm going to replace that with door right slider, and these both should have their same locations for both of those. So I'm going to go ahead and compile, and I'm going to save it. The next thing I'm going to do is go back into the event graph. Now, we don't want to rotate these. We want to slide them, right? And the way we're going to do that is by changing out the set relative location for both of these, rotation rather. And we're going to change it instead to set relative location, which I accidentally said a second ago. So we're going to go ahead and delete those two things. We don't need it. We don't need that for the moment. I'm going to delete that and that. We're going to go ahead and we're going to risk it. We're going to see if this will work. I'm going to go ahead and slide out from here. We may have to come back and change these nodes out. Every once in a while, Unreal Engine kind of gets a hiccup. So I'm going to type in set relative, and we're going to want location. That one, and I'm going to grab this one, slide it down so I have a little bit of room to work. I'm going to right click, split that struct pin, and instead of being in the Z location, which is for rotation, we're actually going to slide it in the Y direction. So see how we have the green arrow here for both of these? We're going to slide these in the Y direction. So let's go ahead and go back into our event graph. And with the left door, we're going to go into the timeline. We're going to change it from rotation. So right click here, rename. And so we're not rotating it. Now this is just, making things clean. You don't necessarily have to change it, but I am. I'm going to say left door movement. And this is going to be right door movement. And these were set to open 110 degrees. That's what they were going to rotate open to. And so when we click on this, see a negative 110 and positive 110. That way, it kind of gets the door out of the way when the player tries to go through it, since it would rotate open that far. But we don't need it to move that far. It'll be too far. So we're going to change this to a negative 90. And then we're going to come down here, hit the F key to focus it. We're going to find our little diamond here, and we're going to change this to 90 for a positive direction. And we're going to go ahead and save it. We're going to go back to the event graph. We're going to take the left door movement and plug it into the left door new location. We're going to plug that one in right there. And then we're going to do this again. We're going to do a Control D because I can just do it that way. Plug this in, plug this in, plug this in as our target. And then we're going to take the right door and we're going to plug it into the Y location. We're going to clean it up a little bit. Satisfy my OCD. And save it. All right, so that should be everything. So let's go in and go back to our sandbox. Kind of find an empty spot here. We're going to find our slider door. Put it there. Let's do a file. Save all. Not sure why the doors are different colors, but we'll just roll with it. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Let's see what we get. Do we get anything? All right, so they slide open like they're supposed to. And they slide back like they're supposed to. But we got the wrong sound in there. We have a clicking sound and a roll, which I guess if you wanted that, you could leave it. But if you wanted to change it, you can find a different sound that you like. And it's as simple as just changing out the sound right here. Now, in that pack that we downloaded that came with the door noises, there actually is a sound that I'm kind of using for now as a kind of a temporary stand-in. And it should be, I think it's fire, actually. I think it's called Fire Whoosh. Fire Whoosh, and here it is right here. It's Fire Whoosh Q, so 215. I'm going to select that one. Yeah, that's the one. We're going to do the same down here. as a sound cue. Compile, save it, go back in, let's test it again. All right. Okay, so now we got the doors all set up and everything is moving, but in my haste, I kind of mixed the doors up in the way that they're supposed to be set up because we're actually going to be sliding them, and instead of rotating them from this corner over here, so when I go in and select the door from the corners, we're actually going to be moving them from the center point. So these doors are swapped. The first thing we need to do is to go in to our double door slider, and they need to be set to 0. It was hard to notice that because when I hit play, if it hadn't been for that door that's discolored right there, which we'll fix in a minute, I wouldn't have noticed it. But notice how they swapped position when I did that? Yeah, we're going to need to fix that. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into our slider door, and the first thing is we're going to change this from negative to 0, and then we're going to select the other door. So that was the right door. We're going to select the left door and change it from 90 to 0 and just kind of pop them around to where they're supposed to go. And then we're going to hit save, and then when I hit play, they should open and close correctly now, and we can see that the door that's discolored now stays on the left-hand side where it started out at, so they don't swap. We wouldn't have noticed this if it hadn't been for this funky discoloration. Now, the other thing that happened is when we drug our textures back in, we didn't, I didn't notice that there was going to be a change in the settings. So when we bring in textures, what happens is the textures themselves will have different settings to them that we can modify. And we can see that. Let me go ahead and close this one and go back to this one and close that one. All right, so let me pull up my textures. So if I go back in here and I pull up this texture, and I also pull up the other texture that we drug in, we take a look at them. They both have these settings that they came into the world with. And what we want to do is we're going to have to modify them so that they behave correctly, because this isn't just a typical PNG or JPEG image that we're using, so it's not a typical color. We're using these as an RGB for this particular material. And I should have thought about that when we first brought these in, and I didn't. So my bad for that one. But what we're going to have to do is over here on the right-hand side with this one opened up, we're going to change this to compress without alpha. And we're going to turn this into a mask. And we're going to say no RGB. So we're going to pick mask, no RGB, and it's going to do that to us. It's going to snap back. It's going to tell us we have an error in here. And then we're going to go back to that one. We also need to change this right here and select make sure that the no RGB is selected right here as well. Okay, and so just double check to make sure your settings look like this. Okay, and now we're going to go back to the material. And in that material, we're going to need to select on the node, and we're going to change it from color to masks. And it should pop back in there. And since we have 2 of these, we have to do it for both of them. And that's going to save that, and that's going to fix that. Now, the other thing that may or may not have happened to you, because sometimes Unreal Engine will recognize when you bring in a normal, and sometimes it won't. So this normal map, notice how mine says color down here? That means we have a problem, because it should say normal. So if I go back to the texture that we drug in for the normal, everything looks okay here, correct? But it is not. What we need to do is we need to make sure that it is not compressed with alpha. We need to make sure that we uncheck the sRGB if it's checked. Of course, it's going to give me an error because now we're saying it's not a color anymore. And we need to go in here and we need to change it from a default to normal map. And then we also need to select the normal here and make sure that it says normal right here. And then we can hit save. Do a file, save all. Now these are still going to have their errors because we actually have to close the texture and then reopen it for the errors to go away. Okay, and let's see. Okay, see now the door no longer has that weird discoloration either. And if I hit play, everything should be working correctly, and the discoloration should be gone from this door, as well as our other doors, because it probably was on our other doors as well, if we made any modifications to them. So that slider door back there. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Hopefully I didn't lose you. And again, if you're coming into just this tutorial and you didn't watch where we made the double door, you're going to need to go in and at least modify the door frame the same way we did in that tutorial for the double door. And also at the very beginning, we modified the door frame, and at the very end, we had to modify the collision, because even though we stretched it, the colliders don't go with the door frame. When we stretch the door frame, you have to go in, delete the original colliders, and recreate the colliders. I show you how to do that at the very end of the double door tutorial. So you need to watch the very beginning to stretch it, and the very end to fix the colliders, and then you should be good to go with this tutorial. All right, so again, any questions, please hit me up in the comments down below. If you liked what you saw, please hit that like button, help me out. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can keep up with all these other tutorials that are coming out. Our next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and finally make an interactive door where the player has to press the E key to get the door to open or to close. All right, thanks again. Thanks for playing, and I will see you next time.